Welcome to Getting Home Sourced with G. Your one-stop shop for all things real estate. Gianno is your go-to guy with over 25 years of experience in the game, serving up the insider scoop on buying, selling, and investing in two of the hottest markets, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Cabo, Mexico. Whether you're looking to score the perfect home, seal the deal on a sale, or dive into the world of international investments, G's got the tips, tricks, and swagger to make it happen. Remember, in Nevada, the smart choice is the right choice. And when it comes to Cabo, you better go oceanside with Cabo G. If you were looking for a quiet, tranquil show about real estate, this ain't it. Gianno has this thing called passion. Let's unleash the beast. This is Welcome to Getting Home Sourced. And now your host, Gianno.
Now get ready for a great show from Mexico. Okay, Gianno, take it away.
Ándale, vámonos aquí here. Everybody, welcome. This is Getting Home Sourced with your host G, and I'm here live in where else? Los Cabos, Mexico. Bienvenido, mi amigos and amigas. Welcome to wherever you are listening around the world. And as I always like to start off by saying, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you're listening. Thank you so much for listening in today. We got a really great show today. As I am theming this show, it's another play on words, folks. It's trusting your trust, of course, with G. So why are we saying trusting your trust? Because we're going to be focusing here today on this show with Mexico and how do you buy property and why, as a foreigner or a foreign national, you're going to purchase property in Los Cabos, Mexico through a trust. And we're going to dive deep into that and do like a two-parter on that. But first, like I said, always thank you so much. I love you all for listening. And again, from the bottom of my heart, I hope that what I'm saying and what I'm conveying and what I'm bringing out to the masses is making sense and you're getting great information. But of course, as I always ask, please, if you want my newsletter, and you get everything that's going on a monthly basis, go to my website, VegasHomeSource.com, click on the newsletter, subscribe, and tell your friends about the show. Subscribe as well. So for my newbies that are listening in, welcome. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope you listened to my last week's show and the week before to get you going, to tell you where we're going down the road. And of course, my repeat offenders, you know, I love you guys. You are the engine that drives the Ferrari. So again, for that, thank you. So again, it's trusting your trust for G. And we're just going to jump right in. Like I said, what else are we going to do, right? So at the end of the day, in Mexico, where I'm at live now, the weather is pretty warm. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a bit toasty, but that's how it is during the summertime over here. Now, again, in the United States, we go on vacation actually at the end of the week. So we have Labor Day weekend, end of August, going into really September 1st. So we have our 5-day vacation. So I'm taking the opportunity to get down here because there's a lot of exciting things. People are coming down, taking vacation, because now in Los Cabos in Mexico, the high season, as they call it, kicks off around the middle of October because they have what I call the World Series of Poker and Fishing. It's called the Brisbane Tournament, where people from around the world, they come here for 2 weeks, end of October. They do the fishing tournament, big cash prizes. I mean, we're talking like in the millions. I think last year, $9 million winner, right? So for catching the largest fish and a compilation of that. So now is a time where I like to get down here and really do a deep dive on the buying side, right? So now with the last days of summer coming upon us, and I'm hitting the ground here in Cabo hard because, like I said, I really want to get polished up and ready for the fall season, getting into winter, because that's when everything starts to pick up. But what's the question that people ask when you always go to a foreign country? Who do you trust with your trust? Because, again, It's your trust in people. It's your trust in real estate, but it's also creating your trust when you're buying property, right? So on that note, I'm going to do the deep dive. So back in 2014, we had a lot of requirements that took place because of the money laundering that was going on, and that affected the way Mexican law was written, and then they had to revise it to allow foreigners to buy in Los Cabos specifically because it is a tourist destination, and also they call it TZ, which is the tourist zone. And mainland Mexico looks at the peninsula differently, and because mainland Mexico they do their own separate thing, but in the peninsula, the Baja California Sur, which is where Los Cabos is located at, that's where the Mexican country considers the entire peninsula a quote-unquote restricted area. So with that being said, foreigners can now set up through a Mexican trust, okay, which is a Mexican corporation, or you set up a fideicomiso, which is also a Mexican trust, through your own trust or through your own name, however you want to take the title, right? So it's important to understand for foreign buyers that you have to connect with trusted people. And this is the word I'm going to be focusing on is trust, right? Because again, two plays, trusting me, let's say as your realtor, obviously in Cabo, to go purchase, and also trusting the process. And also, who are you trusting? Where are you getting your information from? So it's getting the trusted information, getting a trusted attorney to structure everything. And of course, you also, when you're in Los Cabos, you're going to need a trusted accountant, because that's what's going to happen when you start having to set up your facturas, which is receipts, because down the road, you're going to get that capital gain write-off benefit, right? So now with the fideicomiso, for those that are listening to the show fairly new, we talked about this a couple of months back, that a fideicomiso is a trust that foreigners purchase, okay, for home ownership. Now again, with home ownership, the use for a fideicomiso is what I like to say is personal. So when you're setting up a personal trust, when you want to just use the property in Los Cabos for yourself, for your family, and what have you, for friends, and it's not as an investment, you want to go with the fideicomiso, okay? But if you're looking to set up where it's a investment opportunity for you, so you're going to do short-term rental or fractional share, anything that's going to generate income from it, and to take advantage of the tax write-off that you're going to get, you need to set it up as a Mexican entity, okay? So it's important, the difference between the fideicomiso for a personal trust, which is a bank trust, folks, by the way, and then you also have the Mexican entity, which is a corporation that you're going to set up, a Mexican corporation underneath the bank trust. So, for example, for a lot of U.S. citizens that I help make the transition down to Los Cabos and they purchase, what they're doing is they're setting up a U.S. entity, and then that U.S. entity then becomes part of the Mexican entity that owns the trust. So if that makes sense, I'm going to repeat it again so you understand. So let's say if I put down Cabo G LLC, which is a limited liability corporation here in the United States. I take Cabo G LLC, and now I go ahead and create a Mexican entity. So let's say I'm going to do Cabo G Mexican entity, right? Corporation, what have you. Now the Cabo G LLC US entity is now the ownership of the property under the Cabo G Mexican entity, right? So you have two entities, US entity coming in, having the Mexican entity as the holder of the trust, but my entity owns the property, right? So it's important to understand when you're looking for the tax benefits and the write-offs, whatever country of origin that you're in, you want to make sure that if you're going to be purchasing, try to purchase, if you're going to be going back and forth to that country that you're living in, use your country of origin's entity first instead of going through your personal, because you could still use as a beneficiary and pass that down, right? So it's important to understand you want to take advantage and get the knowledge to where down the road, when you do happen to sell the property, when now you're a buyer and you go to a seller, you're going to have more write-offs as a Mexican corporation rather than a fideicomiso, which again is used for personal use, right? So you want to take advantage so you're not getting hit heavy on capital gains when you turn around and sell the property. So that's why it's important in Los Cabos. We are an attorney state. We are accounting state. We have a notary. This is how it all gets set up. So a lot of people that call up and talk to my virtual assistant and they're asking questions, now you're getting an idea when you're looking at property, because again, don't worry about the price points. Look, folks, people that go onto my website and you're looking, I have a lot of properties for sale. There's a lot of stuff that you're looking at. So just take into consideration that the properties that you're looking at, you can get anything from, let's say, $250,000 US dollars, because that's how you acquire property in Los Cabos in the Peninsula of Mexico. It is in US dollars. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later in the show. And it could go up to 20 million. Seriously, I mean, there's properties out there that are that expensive that are literally on the beach and they're mansions on the beach. But for simplicity purposes, you need to know that here in Cabo, when you are purchasing a property, you will have an attorney and you will need a notary and you will need an accountant. And of course, Capo G, I take care of that for you because my office, that's what we do. So you don't have to be worried about, what's going to happen and what's the process and what have you. I think it's really more important to understand that, again, country of origin, double taxation. You need to know how Mexico reciprocates with the country that you're in. So, for instance, whether it's Canada or the U.S., just taking the North America, for instance, there is no double taxation, so you're okay. But if you're going into Europe or Asia or Australia or Middle East or what have you, you have to understand and make sure that your country that you're in, you're not going to get hit on double taxation. So you have to look really at the Mexican treaty between Mexico and the country of your origin, and that really will help you out and get a better understanding of what's going on and how you can take advantage. And of course, I'm going to help you too when you have your capital gains and when you're going to turn around and sell the property eventually. But I just want you to know, to preface that in the beginning, that's why it's very, very, very important how you're taking title and ownership of the property up front, because you're going to get the benefits on the back end. That's why it's important to talk to your local realtor. And again, it's me. This is what we talk about with trust. You're trusting me to give you the information. You're trusting me. You're going on my website. You're going on to my MLS. You're checking things out. You're getting the fact finding. You're doing your homework. But then when it comes time to transition and you're ready to go and you're ready to purchase, again, trusted real estate agent, trusted attorney, trusted accountant, and notary, and you're good to go, right? So those are the key components, and that's why my group makes sure that you're covered in that capacity. So again, that's why I say to you guys, any questions and you need to talk to me direct, please feel free. Always send me an email first and foremost, because of the time differences where we're at. So this way we could set up a scheduled phone call. We could do it via WhatsApp, Signal, regular telephone, email. However you want to do it, we'll make it happen. So don't be shy. Ask the questions that you're not getting from Miss G. That's why you contact me, as I'm going to say in this show, Cabo G, right? So that's how we do that. Now, again, when the trust is set up through the bank of your choice, because now, again, remember, the banks hold your trust. So this way, in essence, you're hidden from public records, right? So the bank is the one that's on file. So banks down there that I use is Bank Mafel, Bank Norte, Banco Comer. Those are just three of the banks as an example that you can use when you come down to Cabo and you're in that position to where you need to open up a bank account, and then you take the bank of your choice. We give you options, and then from that point, go ahead and have a conversation with the bankers to get that situated. Now, the bank sends the paperwork to Mexico City to file, folks. So this is not like maybe in some countries where you have electronic filing, it's DocuSign, it's immediate and what have you. Not so much here in Los Cabos. This is still old school, where I always say, people are always going to say to you 45 to 60 days. I don't like saying that. I always say, because you don't know the time frame from, the regular banks, the municipalities, state authorities, how long it takes them to get the docs signed off. And again, I like to play it safe, and I always like to say to my clients, just plan on 90 days minimum, right? So 90 days minimum, start to finish. So that's what happens in the meantime. So now you're asking me, well, why does it take so long? Well, that's a great question, because a lot of people don't realize that now the notary has to go and record it at Mexico City Public Records Building, right? So it's the House of Records. That's where they go. So it also depends upon how fast the notary is. And a good notary, of course, Cabo G has a good notary. That's why people use me. And at the end of the day, expedite the process. So now you're asking, so what happens, in the meantime with that 90 days? And again, let's just say for argument's sake, 120 days. Great question. So now we use what's called prepossession. And prepossession is a term that's put in contracts because a lot of people do not want to wait 3 to 4 months to close on a property. Yeah, it's a cash deal, but still it's the process of paperwork and pushing that along down, like we say, kicking the can down the road to finally get it recorded for you, so now you own it. But in Los Cabos, you're allowed to do prepossession. So this option is really starting to really come about more and more because a lot of people really want to get into the properties. And what happens is that it offers the buyer time to move everything in, furniture, what have you, or if you're looking to get in right away. And sometimes the properties are furnished, folks, because I sell units that are fully furnished, ready to go. All you have to do is bring your clothes, drop them down in the closet, and you're set. So there's different properties where they're vacant or vacant furnished. So it depends upon what you want. So let's say you want the prepossession option. So what happens is that you take whatever the purchase price is. Let's just say $1 million US, for example. So out of $1 million US, you're putting a whole $1 million into an escrow account, which is a third-party entity that holds the buyer's money. So this way it doesn't get stolen or taken away from the seller and then runs away. So it's protected through an escrow company, right? So now at this point, the whole time is the consideration for the buyer to occupy the property. So that means now you negotiate your money. So it could be anywhere from 70 to 90% release of the buyer money to the seller, with the remaining balance due when the deal is completed. So let's say, again, if you're losing $1 million, so now you have to release 70% of that. So let's say 700,000, and now you have 300,000 US left over. That will be released at closing, but at least in consideration, that's where negotiation comes into play to see how you're going to structure the deal, right? So again, like I said before, all deals are done in US dollars. However, at the end, for taxes and closing cost purposes, the final price on the deed, which is the financial instrument that shows ownership, will always be in pesos, which is the Mexican currency, to be signed before a notary. So that is the most important thing that we need to know. Now, on that note, I'm going to go get a margarita, and I'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Trusting a trust. What great info from Cabo G. Now let's hear something really, really important.
Dreaming of owning a slice of paradise? Look no further than Cabo, Mexico. With Zion and Cabo G Real Estate, you can make that dream a reality. Whether you're seeking a luxurious beachfront villa or a cozy getaway in the heart of Cabo, Zion offers personalized service to help you find the perfect property. Imagine waking up to breathtaking ocean views, enjoying world-class dining, and experiencing vibrant culture, all just steps from your door. Make your dream home in Cabo come true today with Zion's and Cabo G Real Estate.
Hey, what do you say? What do you say? We got a rocket show here, folks. Again, it's a lot of information, and that's what I like to bring to you. But I'm here, live in Cabo, right out of my office. We're going to be here for a couple of weeks because we got to take advantage and get ramped up. There's a lot of good things coming. I got clients coming down early, so it's margaritas in hand, and we have computer in the other. We're looking at properties. We're seeing what's going on, and we're enjoying ourselves, right? So that's what it's all about right now. But again, in jumping back in on the closing side, because now this is going to get more intricate, the buyer's cost based on the exchange rate, which is usually 4 to 4.2% of the total price. 3% of the purchase price is going to be an acquisition tax that's paid through the notary from the buyers, and that's where you have to have a wet signature. So the 3% acquisition is basically stating that this is what you're paying as a proration tax, let's call it, because it lets the government know that now you are acquiring the property. Because like I mentioned before, in the back end, sellers are paying 35% capital gains. Like I said, I'm going to do a deep dive on that, but just to kind of give you the preface ahead of time, how the breakdown is going to go for the buyer, right? So it's a 3% acquisition tax paid through the notary that the buyers have to have a wet signature, which means there's no email, no DocuSign, no electronic signature, no fax, nothing. So in this situation, the buyer has options, right? So the buyer either has to be present for the closing, which of course, folks, I highly urge you, if you're going to be spending money down here, you really should be here for the closing, unless something of an emergency happens and you cannot be here to sign. Other than that, really, folks, you really need to be here to sign, right? But if you can't because events take place, the buyer can now do two options. Now you can do what's called a limited power of attorney or a power of attorney, right? So now the buyer can appoint somebody to sign on their behalf. So when you're doing that and you're not here, the limited power of attorney is basically where you're designating for arm's length transaction. You're giving, let's say, an attorney, which really you should be using anyway to have as a power of attorney, or your accountant, right? Or another person, it could be a family member or what have you, to sign on your behalf, right? So that has to happen for the final closing to take place. And attorneys in Los Cabos and in the Baja California Sur, which you call BCS, they're allowed to sign on the buyer's and seller's behalf if need be. So it's important to understand that you have this option at your fingertips, right? Now, as a listing agent, I put together a capital gains strategy study because I want to represent the seller as well if I'm on the selling side too. Because remember, if I'm helping you buy the property, I would like to think that you're going to use me selling the property, and that's what happens now in the back end. So visualize yourself, you're here, you're on the beach, you're buying the property, and all of a sudden you have all this equity in here, and you're like, wow, I mean, I want to upgrade, or maybe I need to downgrade, or whatever the situation might be, or maybe you just want to make a great, equity play, and you want to sell the property, right? So now, if I'm your selling agent, and I'm listing a property for you, now we have to go through our capital gains strategy. Because at this stage of the game, think of it more as a study, right? So now I have to break it all down for you. And now you have to know, like I said before, there's a 35% capital gains cost, right? And payouts. And it's always important to have receipts, like I just talked about before, about having a factura. Factura in Mexico means is receipts, right? So a buyer, when you're selling the property, you hold on to that 3% acquisition paperwork that you're going to get, right? So as a buyer, you have that acquisition tax fee, you have the improvement costs, you have the commissions cost, you have notary attorney fee costs, and you have what's called other authorized deductions. It could be furniture, it could be art. So on the front end, as a buyer, you need to hold on to that acquisition fee because that's a write-off for you when you turn around and sell. Then you add on your improvements, the commissions, because again, sellers always pay commission in Cabo in Mexico, so that's just do we have an understanding on that? But now you take into consideration the furniture, the art, anything that could be a negotiated item. Again, it's a case-by-case basis, so just keep in mind that you have to save receipts. Anything that you buy that's going to be an improvement to the property, please, folks, and I'm going to tell you that in person anyway, but now that I'm telling you over the airwaves, save all documentation and all paperwork from your closing as a buyer and everything that you're going to do with that property after you take possession, right? Because that will be deductions down the road that will chew into that 35%. So again, let's say $1 million property that you're selling it for is $1 million. Now, $350,000 would be considered capital gain if, let's say, you're making $1 million in equity, right? So, and again, I'm just using round numbers. So you have $1 million in equity, 35%. Now you have 350,000 again, US dollars, right? Now you want to take out of 350,000. Well, let's say you put 250,000 into the property, and that's also including your acquisition fee and what have you. Now you're going to build in commissions and every other what they call authorized deductions. So let's say your bottom line gross number is 250. That means you're left with 100,000 US dollars left over. You'll get 35% taxed on that, and you're only paying 35,000. Great deal, right? So that's why it's important. Again, we're talking about trust. Trust the process. Make sure you have your trust set up properly, and you have a trusted realtor like myself, as well as a trusted attorney and accountant. So for those that want to understand the language down there, so for an accountant, we say contador, and then for a lawyer or an attorney, we say abogado. So when you hear those two words, and also for notary, notario. So those are the three words that you have to understand when you come to Los Cabos. That's the buzzwords that go around. Those are the three people, primary 100%. And then, of course, me as your realtor, because that's the relationship and the connection, and we're building that bridge together. So that's why, again, trusted people, your trust, you have to, who are you trusting with your trust, both on paper and trust as you as a person, if you're buying as an individual, couple, or family. Very, very, very important. So this is a detailed, broad stroke of the buying and selling process, folks. Now, again, like I mentioned before, October kicks off the high season. High season means that a lot of people are going to be coming down there. They celebrate the holidays down there, going into the new year, and it runs right through till June. And then you have July, August, September, this time frame. And again, folks, it's hot down here, so if you love the heat, this is for you, right? It's great for your skin, humidity, beautiful hair, skin, you're loving life. But really, the crux of it all and really the intensity starts to ramp up in October. So that's why I'm saying, folks, if you're looking to get into the market now, I'm telling you, please reach out to me. I can get more detail with you. We have the one-on-one. I know you're calling up. And then listen, folks, by the way, I love you guys that are using my toll-free number, as I mentioned, in past shows, and I mentioned in this show, 888-528-2810. And for my domestic friends, just put a 702 in front of 7, or instead of 888, you do 702, same number, right? So at the end of the day, you want to make sure when you're doing and going through the computer, you're going through the website, you're doing your searches, you're getting property information, contact me. I can get more information for you. If there's something that's on your target, again, sometimes properties are on the market longer than others, depending upon the condition of the property. So this is where buyers have an advantage, because it's still right now a buyer's market in Los Cabos. So as a buyer, I'm telling you, folks, you're going to get a great deal, because right now, the way things are going, like I said, let's just take for September, for example. A lot of people are taking vacations in September. Right now, for locals, it's quiet. But as a buyer, if you want to come down now, whilst properties are basically on the market for a couple of months, because again, July, August is a bit slow for selling a property. But as a buyer coming down, now you have your choice, what I call pick of the litter. You can get in there and get a smoking deal. So that's why I'm down here now, because actually I'm going to be meeting with clients this week and next week as well, taking advantage, because like I said, with the US 5-day holiday, a lot of those people stay beyond, but in those 5 days, they're wanting to come down here, they're wanting to see properties, because they know that their ROI, return on investment, is going to start kicking in when they get those properties and they start renting them out. Because folks, this is why people buy in Los Cabos, why it's such a viable opportunity, because you can make very good money, very good return. And at the end of the day, taxes on the back end, utilities and what have you, are really cheap compared to other cities. I'm telling you. And we can get into that more when we meet each other, or just send me emails and we can get into that more detail oriented for you and the questions that you have. But to give you some data before we wrap up the show. Now, again, for instance, I'm going to take Canadians, for example. Now, tourism for Canadians is up 7% from January of 25 to present, because a lot of them are upset with the tariffs that President Trump and the U.S. has put on Canada. So now they're kind of, in a way, boycotting the U.S. And now guess what happens? That drives up the buyer demand to come down here to Los Cabos and buy in Los Cabos because they don't want to invest in the U.S., right? Now, in the U.S., 40% of the tourism in from the U.S. is made up from Californians. So in the state of California, it's really from Los Angeles. It's a 2-hour nonstop flight going from Los Angeles, L.A. to Los Cabos. San Diego, maybe a half an hour less, right? So because San Diego borderline Tijuana, but that's Baja California. We're going to talk about Baja California Sur, right, in Los Cabos. But the point is that tourism is going up for foreigners, meaning Canadians and what have you. And obviously, we can't really say U.S. foreigner because really a lot of U.S. is made up in Los Cabos right now. That's why it's a primarily English-speaking market. But you do have a lot of other languages, Chinese, Italian, obviously Spanish. So Argentinians are coming in, you have the Portuguese. So you have a lot of diversity here that's coming in. So I want people to understand, don't worry about the language. And please, folks, don't worry about translations because we take care of you. My group has people that speak multiple languages. So don't be afraid to reach out because we're here for you. So again, people think that the language barrier, well, I like to go to Mexico and purchase, but nobody speaks my language. That's not necessarily true. With today's technology, believe me, if we can't speak your language, our phones speak for us. So if we have to sit talking to each other and do Bluetooths and earpieces to plug in, we're going to do it. I mean, they have it out there. You can go and get earpieces and Bluetooth and plug it in your ear, and we're talking to each other, and we can speak fine with each other, right? That's a new technology that's out. But again, like I said, at the end of the day, now the breakdown is, why is Los Cabos so super sexy and exciting? Well, it's very simple. There's 3 things. 40% of tourists that come down have basically stated it's for satisfaction. They love it, it's efficient, and it's just great relaxation. Okay. The second part is wellness. Now, wellness people, they spend about $3,000 US, which could be massage, it could be spa treatments, it could be massage, whatever you're looking for. Basically, the average is like $3,000 US. Again, affordable when you're going to a foreign country. And you literally, folks, you can get massages on the beach. They're legit, folks. Okay, let's just say this is not a dirty show. But you can actually get a real massage on the beach. It's awesome. Now, the last thing, too, is about the activities, right? So you have whale watching, you have fishing, you have boating, you have food and culture. Basically, the most important thing, too, is cleanliness. People are so friendly here. It's not like where people are uptight, because let me tell you something. There's no TV stations here, folks. I mean, there's no TV news. If you want to stay in your hotel and watch, películas, what they call movies, you can watch movies all day long. I don't think you want to come down to Cabo just to hang out in a hotel room. But at the end of the day, there's no news stations. There's no media outlets. So you're only getting your source of news on your phone. Or, of course, they have like a regular weekly newspaper, but they're giving you events that happened a week ago, right? And by that time frame, you might be gone. So that's why it's always important when people come down here, because you're relaxing. You don't have to worry about what's going on in the world because the world's tuned out. And like I said, I'm going to be here for 2 weeks. I'm not going to know what's going on in the U.S., and I really don't care. I care about people that are coming down here, because when you come down here, you're in a whole new world, and you don't have to worry about that the world is falling apart wherever you're coming from, right? So that's what it's all about. It's your phone, and that's it. So on that note, folks, I know that my show took longer than today, but I really think it's important to understand that now that I'm down here, reach out to me. Don't be shy. Get your questions in with Miss G, and let's get you set up. Let's get you a property, because I'm going to be talking more. I mean, there's good things coming up, especially in October. I cannot wait. This is going to be the groundbreaking of all groundbreaking, game changer. I know it's a tease, but again, it's getting closer. That's all I can say on that note. But again, I love you all. Thank you so much. Again, Cabo G, go to my website, VegasHomeSource.com. Click on my newsletter, subscribe, share with your friends, tell people about my show, let them know, hey, this guy's got it together. He's given us the tools to succeed, and that's what it's all about. Tools to succeed. Who do you trust with your trust? And on that note, love you. God bless. Talk to you next week.
Didn't I tell you this guy was great? Nice job, Cabo G. You're great.
You have just listened to Getting Home Sourced with your radio host, Gianno Buonaguro. This podcast is a registered trademark and may not be reproduced without the express written consent of VegasHomeSource.com. For additional information about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, call or text Gianno toll-free at 888-528-2810 or visit his website at VegasHomeSource.com. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.